So in that conversation, we were having a conversation, and a lady said, I think men have gone soft nowadays. Men have become soft.
Okay.
So the question is, how and what are you measuring by to determine some like a gender has gone soft or men have gone soft? What's the kind of baseline measurement? Do you know what I mean? So I think the conversation evolved into thinking how men used to be of a certain demeanor, of a certain attitude, of a certain personality to carry themselves. You know, like there was a certain stereotype of what a man would be like.
It was more than a stereotype, wasn't it? It was the way.
It was a standard.
Yeah, it was a standard.
And it was something to be proud of.
Yes.
Like the more manly. I mean, what is meant by manly?
Well, manly, when you say alpha male, you're thinking, okay, if you want to go really far back, you're like hunter, gatherer, me, man, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, more traditionally speaking, it's the chief of the tribe, isn't it? It's the kind of
the bay.
The bay. Yes. If you
Ayy
know, you
wallah.
know. But I see. I don't have an issue with that. I get that. So when she said this to you,
Yeah,
did it kind of strike you? Did you agree with it? Did you feel any straight up emotion? Because it's not a one-time thing. It is said, isn't it?
Well, it is said, and it's a personal preference thing, isn't it? The thing is, what it made me question is how, for this individual, she felt that as time has gone on, men have become soft, right? Now she's measuring her standards with or by something. So she's probably of a certain generation who has seen something else to compare by for her to think, now this is the situation, this is how it's this for her, the standards have dropped.
Yeah. Changed.
Yeah.
But
well,
she says drop. Yeah.
For her it's dropped.
Yes.
For others it just might be different, might be changed, right? So some people would naturally want to have a certain role for people within their households, within their community. Men have been, like you mentioned, the hunter, the gatherer, that person who's responsible for many things.
Well, there was clear-cut roles, wasn't there? Everybody understood their place. There was a formation, not a hierarchy, but just a formation.
Yeah,
you know,
I'd agree with that.
Okay, so this is your role, this is your role, this is your role, and this is how we can all, you know.
I think it was partially also. I mean, when they say men have gone soft, I mean, what we're referring to emotionally, physically, it could be a combination of both, right? Because back in history, not everybody had clerical jobs. A lot of the work was industrial, manufacturing.
Yes, very hands-on,
physical work. So people would generally be more fitter, physically fitter, you know, and
I don't think, I mean, obviously I wasn't part of this conversation, but I don't think that's what she would have been referring to. When I generally hear men have gone soft, I very rarely interpret it as they're not as masculine or they're not as strong. You know, they can't lift things. Or
how do you define masculine?
How do I okay, so
what's masculine in your opinion?
Different things to different people, but generally speaking, I don't think people are saying men have gone soft in the sense that, you know, they can't chop down a tree, which most of us can't. That's not what we're saying. The more heard thing nowadays is generally from the elder generation, men have gone soft, that they're more sensitive, they're more almost, dare I say,
you're
feminine. You know?
Okay. I was gonna say you're picking your words carefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what do you mean that men have become more feminine in that regard? Soft, sensitive. Are you associating being sensitive as a more of a feminine trait?
I think so. Traditionally speaking, that's generally the way it is, and the women have that quality about them, that they're much more, you know, in touch with that side of things. You know, whether we're speaking maternal or caring or kind of anything else, women just are better at that. Men don't express emotion as well.
You mean generally?
Generally.
Are you the kind of guy who, if one of your friends, if I said to you and I'm depressed and I'm upset, and you would just say to me, Maj, man up?
Yeah,
Oh, shit.
Well, no. I was.
Okay.
I was.
Okay.
To be fair, for a long time, I was. And, I was possibly uneducated. I'd not
Mm,
really known about that side of things before. I'd never come across it. I'd never experienced it.
mm,
So, never heard of it, never seen it, never
mm,
experienced it.
mm.
It's alien, isn't it?
When you say never heard of it, never seen it, never experienced it, is that because of the community or the household or the makeup of your social circles was like that, that men did
I
not
think
have that kind
even
of,
wider scale. I mean, you've got a couple of years on me.
more than just a couple of
Well,
years?
taking out
Mm,
weekends and bank holidays, but I'm sure you can think back to a time where men were men, like, in that traditional sense of the word. There wasn't as much depression, anxiety,
or maybe there was and we
all
didn't know
these.
about it. If we look at mental health statistics,
See, I look back at it now
mm,
and I'd agree with that. I think in our time, certainly, it was there.
mm,
It just wasn't recognized. I don't think the person going through it was able to recognize it.
because it wasn't the norm.
Yeah, it wasn't the norm.
It wasn't
It
a
wasn't the norm.
recognized thing for them. Okay, fair enough.
But if you go back further,
Mm.
I'm inclined to believe or think there's a time where it wasn't really a thing because of the build-up of man, because of his characteristics, because of his traits, because of everything known to him.
It was an unrecognized thing or unacknowledged thing. It was simply not.
Unrecognized, unacknowledged. Go back 20, 30 years. Go back more, perhaps.
Mm.
What's more than unrecognized or unknown is non-existent, maybe.
So why do you think there has been this evolution in kind of people's personalities? When if women are saying men have gone soft, and
See,
some,
you've got two aspects, even two parties, even amongst the women. You've got, those that are traditional values, pro-tradition, that will say, men have gone soft. I remember in my day,
mm,
man could do this and this and this, and I would do this, this, this. But then you've also got the other movement, or the almost kind of left opinion, was saying it's fine. You can be what you want to be. You are what you are. You can open up to this, that, everything else.
mm.
So even amongst women, there's no consensus.
Do you think there's this secret, a person within a person, they secretly think something, but they don't always voice it because of the concern that they may get feedback
Yes.
or backlash in the public eye?
Yes.
That they're supposed to be more accepting of certain ways where if they spoke their mind, they would be shunned or they would
Yeah. Well, this
be
is a
seen in a
problem,
negative
isn't it?
way.
This has always been a problem. Is that thoughts or feelings will creep in today, but they
Mm,
won't be spoken about for another 10, 15, 20 years. Because the first person to have the idea won't speak about it. The second one, the third one, you'll have a bunch of people split out amongst a community who
mm.
are all feeling a certain way, but for fear of being shunned, and like you mentioned, the unpopular opinion, it won't be voiced. I think that's in all aspects of life, this is the case, isn't it?
Okay. So when we're looking at the general makeup of society, do you think it's become a concern for people? Because you know what, I was so oblivious to the different things going on with gender as a whole, because there's a difference between sex and gender, right? So sex is what you're born with in terms of what they mention as the different biological makeup of your
Yeah, let's
body,
let's not do too much of that.
and and gender is more, it's evolved now because some people have gender reassignments and some is like gender recognition or identification or whatever. So gender is something different to
Well,
what
it's
they're
not
as sex.
it's not evolved.
Well, I
It,
think views of them or opinions have changed or come
yeah.
about, and
So it goes back to what we were saying. You had this um, people holding back a little bit of certain views that they think might not be mainstream or might not be popular.
mm,
Now is probably the golden age of airing your views. You know, If you want to identify as something else or be something else, now is the time. There's never been a time like this before where it's been encouraged so much. We could have done with it, in my opinion, we could have done with it a few years ago when, like you said, men were seeing a change in the world, the economy, everything else, and they were struggling. So certain options should have been open to them. They should have been able to speak to someone. They should have been able to get help. They should have at least been able to understand what's happening within themselves, you know? But everything was too closed. We've swung the other way, but we've swung hard. Like everything is wide open.
And then it opens doors for other things, doesn't it? I mean, there was something that I was reading on the net the other day, and they raised some questions like, where does it stop? If, for example, you know, if people have the freedom to identify themselves in so many different ways, which is their choice legally, can they also have the freedom to identify themselves not in terms of just gender, but other things like age?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's one guy that I sort of heard a while ago, Ben Shapiro. You're probably aware of him, even if not a fan. I'm not a fan, but credit where it's due. You have to, you know, acknowledge someone when they make a valid point. I could be debating someone, and when there's something that holds weight, it holds water, I'd be like, you're right. There is that. And he said that why can't, so I think he's in his 30s, he's a 30-year-old male or whatever. He said, why can't I identify as a 65-year-old?
Yeah.
You know? And there was someone on the other side, pro whatever it is, saying, well, no, you can't.
But it's a valid question, though. Why
it is a valid question.
Why can't he?
Whereas in actual fact, you know, which is far more important, which is a far bigger thing, you know? So if once those floodgates are wide open, they are literally that. They're wide open. And that's a slippery slope, if anything. Let me ask you a question.
Go on.
When you heard that men have gone soft, did you feel your guard go up? Naturally. Forget about your logic and everything else. Was there naturally something inside you?
I think there was, because subconsciously, you know, it's almost as though I identified or I attributed that statement to me, because I belong in the men camp.
Yes.
At least I'd like to think I
hope you do. Otherwise, you're gonna have to explain the bit.
You know, but so yeah, I did. There was a part of me which kind of felt, oh, hang on, is this kind of referring to? Is it a blanket statement, or is it specific to know some examples?
Okay.
Or, you know, where's that come from?
Let's be more specific. If you were told, come on, man, you've gone soft. Guard goes up, right? Something.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I would want to measure that. I would want to know what is that measured by? Because if I've gone soft, it means I once wasn't.
But prior to that, prior to you bringing in anything, natural instinct is, no, don't say that about me. You know?
Well, it depends on the context, again, because for some things, I don't mind being considered softer on in my views than others, because I've evolved as a person. My views on certain things in life have softened, and they're not as, you know, strict or hardcore as they used to be, maybe when I was a lot younger.
So maybe evolved is the right word. Maybe rather than, okay, so generally it's a whole different topic. Majid hasn't gone soft. Majid has evolved somewhat in his views and opinions, or you know, his outlook on life. There's a difference, isn't there?
Yeah.
You're okay with changing or evolving, but you still don't like to hear the fact that, you know.
Well, it depends on what's gone soft, isn't it? So some things might not be so complimentary, you know.
You didn't say you said it, so the context could be anything.
The context could be anything, couldn't it? It's sort of, God, man, you've gone soft. You know, it's like,
sorry,
some things happen with age, you know. but it all depends on the actual
So
circumstances.
if men have gone soft,
Well, yeah, okay. So
if
go on. Yeah, I think I know where you're going with this. What about the women?
yeah, if women are recognizing,
Are women having to fill those roles and fill those kind of? I don't know.
well, somebody has to. If you're a traditional thinking woman of a certain age, or doesn't forget about the age, of a mindset, and you need certain roles to be filled, certain shoes to be
I
filled.
think that's natural, though. I think that naturally happens. I think especially when in a situation where there are couples,
Yeah.
and you are living in a family unit, things need to be done. And if one person can't fully fulfill that role, the other one will naturally step in if they're better at it. As a couple, if you have that understanding. But if you're one of those guys or a girl, woman, boy, whichever one you prefer,
lamp,
who wants to take a role even though you're not so good at it and being stubborn at it, then that's a different thing altogether, isn't it? Yeah.
See, I've not seen that side of things. People who are predominantly quite open, or not, I don't want to say airy-fairy, but like open, very left-wing in certain terms or certain aspects, where they accuse our traditional values of being completely wrong, as in, why can't a woman do this? Why can't a man cook? Why can't the woman take out the bin? I have not seen that time. I like you said, it's perfectly fine for the wife or the female in the house to be better at DIY. It's perfectly normal. It doesn't matter if it's more common or not, but it's perfectly normal for the man to be good at cooking.
Ali, man, you gone soft. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
it's okay. Context is important.
It is important, but we haven't witnessed that. So we're talking, or we're judging our values based on something we haven't really seen. We're just talking stereotypes now. Was it ever really that bad? We haven't seen it where it was so strict.
Okay, I'll give you an example. I've seen instances where a woman or a female would feel insulted if you open the door for them. That's an extreme version of an example.
As in,
like if you open the door for them, that being the gentleman.
Okay.
Right. And I've seen that happen. And I've seen women kick up a fuss to say the equal opportunity thing.
Yeah.
And I've seen that. And I think that's an extreme example. I'm not saying that
I've had the door open for me on a number of times. I've never felt offended.
Bro, I would open the door for you. You need all the help you need. You can get through the
door. So you'd have to open 2 doors.
But that's an extreme example. But there's an example nevertheless. I've seen changes in people's expectations of the opposite gender or different genders, and they are actually quite strong with their opinions. So even suggesting to open the door for someone, I mean, I was brought up with, I'd like to believe, with some good etiquettes, right? So even opening the door in the car, or simple things like that.
But you do that for anyone, right?
Well, you would say that, I would say that, but not everybody's like that.
Okay.
I've seen instances where it's the whole argument for having equal opportunities has been brought forward so much that they have felt offended for you to open the door for them. I mean, that's I would say it's an extreme situation, and I hope.
But it's a good example, though.
But it's an example nevertheless. Similarly, because of having the fight in for example, women's rights, women will fight hard for their rights, and so they should, legally, and to get those rights. But I think sometimes it's a bit of a blurred line, isn't it? When you're not sure now, for example, this political correctness going so far, sometimes I feel unsure what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing, what I should be saying, what I shouldn't be saying. It's actually quite confusing for me. I'm going to be totally honest.
It is confusing. And I think the people who are fighting are often confused. And I'm not just saying this for, just women's rights or just any one particular movement. But if you were to turn up at a protest, if Beardos media was to turn up at a protest, with the camera, with a mic, and say, okay, what are you here for today? A lot of the time, well, if you ask 10 people, you'll get at least 6 different answers. And if you were to ask, okay, what do you think might become of this, or what do you want to see coming from this protest? You're going to get different answers. Some people won't be able to answer you. You know, women have had to fight for their rights. But where we stand now, there's still a movement of women fighting for their rights. I'll be honest, maybe I'm ignorant, maybe I'm uninformed. I don't know what they're fighting for. I don't fully understand the levels of inequality, you know?
Well, it's generally been statistically shown that women get, for example, paid less than men within the same roles or same responsibilities. It used to be the case. I don't know whether that still is the case.
I haven't seen
I haven't seen updated
and actually,
and even opportunities for promotions and stuff have been affected because of their gender. They feel that they're better led by men as opposed to women in some organizations, and those kind of cases are
we're assuming that.
No, it's these are actual stories.
Because when you look into the statistics, and I read a fantastic study by Dr. Jordan Peterson.
References.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can't give you the stats or the ins and outs, but he made some very valid points. You know, he goes, look, if a man and a woman both do the same job, the same commitment, the same results, the same hours, the same overtime, there's literally no difference.
Yeah, exactly.
But if, you know, for example, if the woman, I don't know, wants maternity leave or wants weekends off or doesn't want to work overtime or whatever, there's going to be a difference. Yeah. And in the fight for equality, you can't really ask for everything to be 50-50. You know, bricklayers, they're 99% male. So where do we go from here? Do we, you know, do we stop hiring males after 50% is reached, and what do we do? In some fields, it's 99% female.
Yasser says there's still a massive gender pay gap.
Where?
Maybe Yasser can give us some.
Yasser, give us one example of 2 people doing the exact same job with the same output and delivering the same results, and they're getting paid differently or unevenly.
I think the example that you mentioned about bricklayers it's not a valid example in my opinion, because if you've got females and males working side by side in a bricklaying job, yeah, then that's different. Then obviously you've got everything else to consider. But if you don't have any, then you're not going to stop hiring men just because there are no females available.
But the thing is, equality is, what is equality?
Well, then you can argue things like, you know, if you want full equality, like that, there was a recent case in MMA where there's a male MMA fighter in the UFC who identified himself as a woman just to go into the women's side, beat everyone up, and got the belt.
Yeah.
And now I think he identifies himself as a man again, just because he wanted the belt. I wasn't Martina Navratilova in tennis had made a comment as well about tennis. Somebody who identified themselves as a female who was a male and had a distinct advantage physically on the court in tennis. And she made a comment about it, and she got shot down for it. A lot of media press was against her because she made the comment. Well, she's a former world champion herself, right? And they said, look, you know, she was like, you've got this is not equality. It's not, is it?
And it can never be equality because, look, identities I get, but there's some things that I can choose my favorite color. Yeah. But I can't choose my eye color. My eyes they are what they are. They're hazel, by the way, just so you know. But
mine are green.
I can't identify as having emerald eyes. It just doesn't work.
Maybe I'm colorblind. I don't see your eyes as hazel.
Well, you need a bit of light to it's in that right way. But you can't, you know, I don't think.
But I don't have to accept it. I don't have to accept it. Whatever you identify your eyes are, you know, you can say identify yourself as, you know, 6 foot you know, muscular. Not to say you're not, but
Well,
you
come
know,
on, man.
but it doesn't mean I have to accept it just because you identify yourself as that.
So then, is that you discriminating against me?
No, it's just this is the argument, isn't it? The argument isn't, I think inadvertently what people do is when they fight for their right for a certain identity, they're not, some people, I'm not saying everybody does this, but some people would actually go so far as discriminate against you for not accepting their
Yeah.
decision. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yes.
It's inadvertently, they're doing exactly what they set out to prevent to do in the first place.
Yeah. Somewhat ironic, isn't it? A bit hypocritical.
In some cases, I would say, you know, it's not always the case. Russ says the loss of gender role or identity, with the loss of gender role or identity, do we lose more than we gain from tradition?
Yes, I'm with Russ on this one. I actually think, and it's not a blanket statement, and it's not, you know, it doesn't always apply to everyone. But generally speaking, as a society, if it's not broke, why fix it? You know, we've done something from the hunter-gatherer days, thousands of years ago. It's working. We've adapted a little bit.
Yeah, you hunt other things nowadays, don't you?
Yeah, but
and you're gathering them.
the general way of doing things is that, like, if I'm driving a car, and if one of my kids in the back suddenly says, "I want to drive," because I identify
myself as a competent driver, and I identify myself as 18 years old.
Know, and I have.
Well, the caveat is they'll need to go and get a license, obviously, which is not going to happen. Well, but they can argue to the authorities, well, why can't I identify myself?
They identify as a driver.
Wasn't there a case about pedophilia? This guy who identified himself as a lot younger or something.
As a child, yeah.
Yeah, and there was open the question, you know, well, hang on, now this person is mixing in with kids. Yes. Should that even be allowed?
No, it's people identify in gender specifically, people identifying as the opposite and just walking into the ladies' toilets or, you know, whatever. And there's been so many cases, so many things.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? With gender neutral toilets.
Yeah.
So some organizations have adopted that, where they say there's only one toilet area.
Wow.
Whether you're men or women, you go to the same one.
Okay. Back to what I was just saying, we lose more than we gain. It's a lot of problems created, isn't it? There might be a time in society when we're ready for absolutely everything. You know?
Is it okay to form expectations from people based on their gender?
How so?
Like, you go out, if you're going for, let's just say you're meeting some people. I have lots of meetings, well, I used to before this lockdown, right? I used to have lots of meetings with lots of different people.
Yeah.
If I'm meeting some blokes, then, you know, either I'd pay, I would always try and insist to pay, or they would pay, right? Or we'd go halves. It's very rare that we'd go halves, either one or the other.
Yeah.
And if it's a female, I feel odd asking them or allowing them to pay. I mean, that's just me, but I'm sure other men are different, maybe. Because of just the way I feel, it's not gentlemanly to let women pay.
Okay.
Just me, you know, I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
So that as an example.
But here's the thing. I just said your line. Okay, here's the thing. You're Majid Waris.
Yeah.
You feel inclined to pay for the meal that you just enjoyed with your company. Male, female, zebra, whatever. When it's with the lads, it's not a problem, you know?
Yeah, it's not a problem with the lads, yeah.
But when you're with, for example, a female, you have to worry about whether she'll feel, I don't know, mistreated or kind of. There's an issue there, isn't there?
Even professional colleagues. I'm not talking about, you know, generally I don't, you know, but
I'm sure you don't.
But even if it's like a professional setting, you meet somebody in a public space or in their offices.
Yeah.
And in the meeting, and you know, they've got a coffee machine there. I would rather be the one to get up and get the coffee and pay for it rather than them. It just me. It doesn't.
But that's you.
Yeah.
You're not out here trying to declare that as law or the way or anything. You have a preference. That's how you carry yourself. You're not kind of discriminating. You're not whatever else. You've learned these values or these traditions, and you like that, and you appreciate that, and that's how you carry yourself. I don't see a problem with that.
So Yasser says, I run design statutory reports for public organizations on HR payroll data, and without mentioning specific clients, they still have big pay differences in office jobs. Since April 2017, employees in the UK with more than 250 staff have to establish by law gender pay reports. There was a case at Birmingham City Council a few years where they were liable for hundreds of millions in equal pay claim payouts. There you go. The stats are there, bro. So you need to do more research. It's there. It's in black and white. The man who prepares these reports is telling us that that's going on.
It's worth looking into. I like I said, if I see it, I believe it. But there is a difference in the way that we generally work. Some women are massively successful. You know, the ones that sacrifice the home life, homemaking life, whatever else it is that they've got going on, sacrifice getting their nails broken and so many different things. And they work overtime and they graft and they put everything else into careers. They really do make it, as do men. You know?
What do you make of, we're talking about men going soft. What do you make of people men when they say, if somebody says to you, man, you're under the thumb, what do you make of those kind of comments? Ali, man, you're proper under the thumb. You are.
No,
what do you make of those kind of comments? It's true. You're under the thumb.
I think I am. I'm under two thumbs.
So,
see, there's certain people that can make those comments, and there's people that can't. But it's coming from a good place. It's going to be somebody that knows you, somebody that is obviously aware of the person that you are, your traditions, and your things. I've never seen that.
Would you not take offense to something?
No.
Okay.
No, I've never had it said offensively. Although, depending on who said it in what context, it can be offensive.
It can be, yeah.
But it's only offensive if you are alpha male, if you're man.
What is an alpha male?
It comes back to the hunter-gatherer, isn't it? The chief.
It's a Chaudhry, yeah?
Well, yeah. It doesn't get more alpha male than Chaudhry.
Zoe says Ali is Chaudhry. We all know that.
Jat is Jat, isn't it? You can't, you can't, but it worked. Can't knock it. It worked. It was a fantastic setup. Everybody played their position and the team delivered.
What if people wanted to break free from that position or wanted to do something? Would they not be shunned upon? Like, let's just say a female in the house wanted to go out and be the professional and the breadwinner and wanted to have a profession and,
Well, there's no what if. We're living that now, aren't we?
Yeah.
And we see how much of a mess things are.
Well, you're referring to the past in terms of it was really great then. So in those times, if that had happened, what would be? Because in my culture, I don't know how much our culture is different.
I don't think there was a lot of changing, but there is instances of where the wife or the woman was making more money than the man. Not common, but it happened. Whether she was from a wealthier family background, inheritance, she was educated, whatever it was. I think what you're referring to is changing roles, like upsetting the whole dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. What about that? I wasn't, but let's explore that. What if that was the situation?
That is each to their own, man. That's difficult, isn't it? Even in a football team, what's your team? What's your?
I don't support football teams.
Ronaldo.
I've heard of the guy.
Number 7.
I'm just
fantastic.
Ronaldo, Messi, whatever. Yeah.
So if he wants to be a goalkeeper, or identifies as a goalkeeper, however it works, he probably knows how to catch a ball, but
he's not the best in that role. No.
So, is it discriminating against him, not letting him be in goals?
Oh, you mentioned the words "not letting him."
Well, So there's a team, like a family dynamic. Husband, wife, kids, whatever.
Yeah. Who makes the decisions in that dynamic?
It depends on your dynamic. again, in some households, it does vary, doesn't it? But what we're saying is changing the whole dynamic midway
Yeah.
without reason.
Yeah. Or when it's not agreed upon in the beginning.
Yeah.
If you change the goalposts and change the dynamics
Yeah.
afterwards, it's different, isn't it?
And I think this is the problem nowadays, is that people will wake up one morning and air a thought that they've had within them secretively, whatever, for some time, and just tear up the whole script, and everybody else has to go along with it. You know, if you decided tomorrow you want to identify as a different gender, or
Yeah.
you don't want to be, I don't know, Majid anymore, it rocks the boat for everyone, doesn't it? And everything.
Whether I'm Majid or not, I'll always be magic. So it makes no difference.
So it's a tough one.
Here's a question for you. We often use phrases like, that's not very ladylike, or, you know, being a true gentleman. Oh, what a gentleman.
Yeah.
Right? What do these terms mean now?
Not a lot.
What does it take to be a lady nowadays? Or what does it take to be a gentleman nowadays? To not swear, is that in itself, in certain circumstances, is enough to be a gentleman?
If somebody's to swear, and I say, excuse me, that's not very ladylike, there's a good chance of that lady being upset or offended. But if I said to yourself or someone else who was to swear, excuse me, sir, that's not very gentlemanly of you, you're not going to be offended or anything. More than likely, more often than not, you're going to think, it's actually not gentlemanly.
I would accept that.
Yeah.
Because of who I am.
Yeah.
But I'm not everyone. I can't speak for everyone. Yeah. Everyone's personalities are different. I have some people or some friends who are effing and blinding all the time.
Yeah.
You say that to them, it makes no difference.
But then it's clear.
They're not a gentleman.
I'm not a gentleman. That. Who wants to be a gentleman? That's boring. Which is fine.
So what about if you said I remember back in the days when my grandma used to smoke, right? So she used to pull out a cigarette, and
Granny's a G.
She was, man, proper. God bless her soul. And I remember, you know, she used to have packs of, I won't mention the brand, but cigarettes in the house. And
was it gold leaf?
Here it was the hookah first, but here it was the B&Gs. And I remember, you know, because she was old and everything, and I used to offer to pass her the cigarettes and secretly light it up for her.
Yeah.
And in them days, for a lady of her age to smoke, although it was like it was uncommon thing, but to see women smoke from her era, they would tell me, my mom or my grandma, that it's not the done thing, right? It's not ladylike to smoke. Now, I wonder if people from our past were to come into the present now, and they saw everything that they saw, I wonder what they would think of certain things, like in terms of gender roles, with what's happened and how people have evolved.
It because they had their own set of values, and the truth is they were loyal to these values. You know, they believed in them, which is why they adhered to them and they held them dearly.
Yeah.
To see those ripped up and, you know, just destroyed like that, defaced, it would hurt them. Of course it would.
Here's the question. Actually, it's Russ's question. Within 12 months, will terms like ladylike or gentleman be allowed?
We don't know that.
We don't know. And that is the scary thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the scary thing, because what we want to be the norm is
there's already issues with calling somebody sir or ma'am or miss or ms. Yeah.
Really?
People are already taking issue with that in universities.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
We've got to see the stats for that, man. That's a bit. Are you serious?
That's where we're going, though, isn't it?
Wow.
It's wrong of me to assume of you as sir or male.
Oh, wow. I remember there was something recently where somebody kicked up a fuss because of something similar like that, where even children shouldn't be referred to as he or she because of this new curriculum about, not even curriculum, but this idea about letting children become who they want to,
Yes.
and not refer to them as from a gender specific address.
Yeah.
Don't address them with gender specific. And that was actually a talk on, I can't remember, one of the TV channels on a breakfast show. They were actually discussing how some teachers were adopting that, or somebody was promoting that concept.
Yeah.
For teachers to adopt, that you don't refer to children by their gender and that address them by the gender, or he did this, or that kind of thing. It was like, wow, is it really going that far?
It is that far, isn't it? We're there now. Parents can actually, I don't know if it's prosecuted or fined or what's the correct word, or even have the children taken away. But if you have a 5-year-old son who, I don't know, wants to be a girl or a princess or whatever, and
you can't do anything about that.
You tell him, no, son, you dress like this, or you're a boy, or at least you're a male. You have genitals. The obvious. It's an issue. It's child abuse.
I don't think it would go towards child abuse.
No, it's classed as child abuse.
I need to see evidence for that. I don't think it's classed as child abuse.
You don't know? Okay.
I think that it goes against the grains and goes against the message to be promoted, or the direction to be taken. But I don't think it's classed as child, because that would make it a criminal offense, wouldn't it? I don't think it's a criminal offense.
That right is already taken away from parents, or being taken away from parents.
Well, it's going in that direction. You just see what happened in Birmingham in that school, where the head teacher who wanted to promote or implement the syllabus, the LGBT syllabus, and there was some discussion around, actually that's actually more promotional than just educational.
Yes.
And the parents weren't, the school actually put up a fight against the parents to say, no, we're going to go ahead with this. And the parents were feeling like they were losing their rights over what their children are being taught.
Yeah, and we find this is the case a lot. I am not witness to parents, telling their children what to be in that sense. If you've got a 20-year-old kid and they decide they are inclined a certain way, you get it, you appreciate it. You might not be a fan of it, but you get it, you'll accept it. Widely, it'll be, understood and accepted. But when you're telling a 5-year-old that this is definitely okay, no, it's fine, this is okay, this is good, this is okay, this is okay, this is how it should be, and it's against the parents' wishes, and it's against anything we've ever known in thousands of years of our existence. It's a tricky one, isn't it?
Well, it's not been unknown. I think it's not been accepted in those thousands of years of existence.
To children.
It's never been promoted or talked or accepted.
Yeah.
Bobby says, funny how tradition is being eroded, yet there's an outcry re-stamping out symbols of colonial past.
It's good to raise these questions.
Yes.
It's good to know this stuff. It's always good to know your history, but it's better to know your future.
We need to have an understanding of the present and the plans for the future in order to better prepare ourselves for the future.
The future has fallen into the hands of very few people. Before we were a community, a global community, let's say, and we kind of all shaped based on our traditions, based on our values, based on our ethics, based on our beliefs, all of these things. Everything is gradually being taken away and almost nullified, shunned, disliked or whatever. Traditions, values, faiths, beliefs, there's a lot of effort in making sure kids know it's all kind of, it's less important.
On that note, I think our next podcast is going to be on that topic. I think we call it self-image psychology. Who are we? Where do we derive our
some deep stuff?
I'm liking this topic, and And I think we should go now. By the way, so next topic is going to be self-image psychology. What are the things that are around us? How do we identify
Mm.
ourselves and stuff like that? But coming back to this, you're right. These things are very, very important. And but in order to understand where we're going in the future, we need to understand what's happening in the present.
Yeah.
But to understand what's happening in the present, we can't negate the past.
Yes.
The past teaches us a lot of valuable lessons. And those people who completely negate the past, they say those who create the present write the narrative of what happened in the past and create the past for the future. It's amazing. The victors, there's another one, isn't the victors always the ones who write history?
Yes.
We have to understand our past in order to kind of think about the future. We have to. I don't think there's any other way. If we don't
I think
understand
that's the problem. I think it's our past is too easily dismissed. It's our past for a reason. Our parents weren't stupid. Our grandparents, our great grandparents, our all generations before us, they weren't. You can't just
we can't negate everyone in the
negate
past.
the
We
whole.
can't claim the idea that we are better than them or we're better informed or we
And
have.
I think that's my only issue going forwards. With having an issue with every single stereotype, every tradition, every culture, everything is that those gates are so wide open that there's people trying to say, we know better now. Nobody knew before this, but we know now.
But they're ill-informed. They're not very well informed about the people. The people in history who wrote books, very deep philosophical books on existence and outlook on life, and they've covered all this kind of stuff. It's just that we've not read them. And when we claim or lay that claim forward to say that we are better than them or we're more informed, they didn't know what we know now because everything's evolved, even science is involved. Science has its own place. Scientific philosophy has its own place. Scientific methods have their own place. These are sometimes you can't conflate them together, which often people do.
Well, science actually goes against a lot of these arguments. Science tells you there's
J.K. Rowling, author of Harry Potter books, only 2 days ago, she tweeted something to do with gender. And I think she mentioned something about not segregating between sex and gender. Sex being what you're born with and identified as, a certain sex, and gender relating to identification and whatnot. And she made the argument. She made the argument. You can't. I think this is what happened. Don't quote me. I think what she said was you can't negate sex, your birth sex, when identifying or having a discussion about gender and identification of gender. And she got run under the bus by loads of people on Twitter for it. She made that, because she made that comment, and it was just something that I saw a couple of days ago. And the argument she was making, not argument as so, she was just making. I suppose she was sharing her thoughts about, look, because the people there are the groups of people who are fighting, or at least putting forward the argument about gender identification and being open to different gender. There are some of them who say sex doesn't come into it. It's just how you identify yourself, right? And I think her argument was, no, actually, sex does come into it, whether you're male or female or boy or girl or whatever. When you're born, that does come. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was the case. But I remember it kind of seeing loads of tweets about it. Was it kind of blew. It was trending. It's the only reason I picked it up. Otherwise, I don't follow J.K. Rowling. Yeah, and it was only briefly that I saw it, and it just shows that no matter what, you would still get people disagreeing with your opinion for whatever reason, and you get shunned in society. You get trolled.
That's the only point where it becomes a problem. Disagreements are fine. Disagreements, different viewpoints, different angles. It's all okay. It's fine. The only issue is when you're kind of just discovered something new and had this brainstorm, and now you need everybody to accept it and everybody to adopt it and everybody.
I think this is the main point there, isn't it? I think the argument is, look, in the privacy of your home or even in the public or whatever, if it's your life, we have freedoms in life, right? We have freedoms, legal freedoms, okay, they may differ from theological or moral freedoms or whichever morals or theology, schools of theology you follow. I think the argument here is, you do what you want, but the moment you start to enforce that belief on anybody else, that's when there's a problem, isn't there? Because not everyone's going to follow that.
Which is what we're at risk of now. LGBTQ, as an example, or homosexuality as an example, or gender identity as an example.
These were things up until 50, 60 years ago, which were, not just not allowed, but in some cases were criminal offenses. In this country,
in this country with the death penalty or stoning, whatever it was.
From thousands of years up until the last 50, 60 years, whatever it might be. And then within a short period of time, you can't expect everybody to change their minds about their beliefs, which they had believed and has been a part of a history's belief, right or wrong, whatever it might be, to conform to your or anybody's different ideas.
It's hijacking, isn't it? It's hijacking. If this country's existed for however many centuries or thousands of years, and they have a standard or they have a way to demand that it's all changed and it's all laws are changed and everything is done differently to sort of accommodate, yourself or your movement, it's a big ask.
Bobby says role of your mother, wife, father has already eroded. I feel boy, girl, brother, sister are now on the chopping board. No appreciation of these roles anymore.
I think the question that Russ posed,
the previous question
does stick with me.
Yeah.
Pros and cons. And the truth is, when we look back to our childhood, maybe we're not old enough, maybe things are already a bit hickory dickory by then. But if our parents look back to their childhoods, it's very fond. Like everything was nice, Grandparents had such a status. They were respected. They were their heads.
Yeah.
Like your parents could tell you off, but the second your grandma said, "Don't say nothing to him," that's how it was.
That was it. Yeah.
The father had a role, and he fulfilled that role with pride and commitment and everything, and it came with the honor and respect. The mother of the home, she was the queen. She had her status, and it was honored. And even the father wouldn't let you speak back to the mother. Everybody played their role. It's a beautiful setup.
I think with Bobby's comment, I think that's more of a case of how you have your own family set up and how the upbringing of that family is put into place, and that comes down to you and your family and how you evolve and how you educate the family, how you bring them up. Adi says too many people try and get people to follow their roadmap of the mind, but your journey is yours, cannot be hijacked. These are all valid points. Stanislav says, if you think our past was written by the people who had suffered the most, how do you expect to build a better world if you live your life carrying their baggage all the time? That's if they'd suffered. Yes, valid point. But even through times of suffering, you would have moments of hope, because things were working as a system within the nucleus of the home. Had that not been the case, then there would be more suffering and more challenges. So yes, I get what you're saying, Stanislava. There are arguments to be made on both sides of that coin. Ideally, I think as human beings, we need to appreciate that everyone has a lifestyle to which they want to live by or kind of conform to, kind of rules, whatever they might have. As long as they're not enforced on others.
Rules aren't a bad thing.
They're not a bad thing. They are good things.
Traditions aren't a bad thing. Values and all of the tradition is not a bad thing. And I don't want to mention like pedophilia, etc. as such, but it's scary what doors that opens up.
Because there's already a movement of people who they say it's no different to being bisexual, homosexual, LGBTQ.
It's an inclination, isn't
It's
it?
an
You're inclined that
inclination, yeah.
way. And if you've got a child, if you can convince that 7-year-old to identify as a 19-year-old, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
You cannot tell a child, look, mate, you can be anything you want to be. You can be male, female, fluid.
Solid.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, gas.
But you can't be, I don't know, a different age, or you can't be
Yeah.
this. And it's messy.
Mm.
It can get messy, but you know.
Yeah, I think we need to be careful of indoctrinations. But the argument that that could be made on the other side is, well, are you not? Is it not indoctrination when you are teaching your children religion or your sets of morals? That's still indoctrination,
Mm.
you know. It's it's an argument that can be made. I think, yeah, some things need to be understood a bit more deeply and appreciative on both sides. But ultimately, I think it comes down to the freedom of choice which has been afforded to people
Yes.
through all sorts of means, whether it be the European Convention on Human Rights 1998, or whether it's our general
There's
society
certain
of,
freedoms a child doesn't need.
yes,
You know, it's okay for a mother to say, no, but the peas go in your mouth, not in your nose or not in your ear.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, that
there's an
makes sense, yeah.
education, isn't it? There's an upbringing of a child.
Yeah.
Obviously, they get to a certain age and they're their own man or woman or aubergine or whatever they're identifying as.
Yeah, and that brings forth the fear of saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong things. Like Eddie says, political correctness has gone overboard in many areas. And I personally, I
Strangely enough, most people think political correctness has gone mad.
well,
So
what does that tell you?
why has it gone mad then? If we're all out here saying,
Because look, the thing is, I think, well, I don't have the whole answer to it, but my opinion is only that, if you're trying to accommodate everyone's ways of life and thoughts, then you're gonna where are you gonna stop? Where are you gonna stop? Sometimes from a state perspective, there are things they shouldn't be involved in. There should be a limit on how much the state interferes with the personal life,
definitely,
or makes things legal or illegal in the personal life, unless it goes against the grain or the morals. And again, what are morals? This is a very objective term, and people's morals shift and change, and unless you belong to some fixed school of morals and theology and thought which has been set throughout the centuries, only then are you going to have a set piece of morals which you're going to be conforming to. But if you don't have that, your morals are open to change and shift with time.
Yes.
And if you say your morals are what the legal rulings are, then that's going to change. Laws get rebuked and revoked and change. And look at the difference in the age of when you can get married and the age of consensual intercourse, and all these things are legally things that which you have to legally conform to. Yeah.
Have men gone soft?
Back to the original question: have men gone soft? Men haven't gone soft.
Okay.
And on that note,
well played.
It's 7:00. We've been on it for an hour. We could probably go on, but I think this time we called it a day. Thank you for everybody who's commented. Make sure you tune in for next week's show at 6:00. Next week, we're going to be discussing, I think we pretty much just decided on the whim, self-image psychology. Who are we? How do we form our ideas? How do we form who we are? How do we decide who we are? And how do we live life, and by what standards? Where do we get that information? How are we educated to do that? How do we, what's our image of ourselves? How do we,
Good luck squeezing that into an hour. That's all I'm going to say.
Good question, Aftab. Who defines what is right and what is wrong? Well, if you belong to a theological set of values, then that's
Apparently,
pretty
everyone
easy.
nowadays.
Yeah, but well, it's some kind of ism,
There
isn't
is
it?
no wrong anymore, and that's my worry. That's my
Yeah.
concern, is that there is no wrong.
Hmm.
Everyone is right, and everything is right.
According to their sense of belief. After we should have come in earlier, man. We're about to shut up. So, guys, have a great evening. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we shall see you next week at 6 o'clock.